Good Sunday to you, everybody. This is Uncle Hondo, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Man, playoff weekends. I just love that. It's just like NCAA tournament, and we're in the midst of it. Obviously, a lot going on with the Raiders, and each and every Sunday we're joined by one of my dear friends, the one and only, the great Matt Hladek from thespun.com. If you're not following the Spun, you should. It is one of the absolute best sports. It is the best sports aggregate site where it takes pop culture and sports and mixes them together. I think it's really, really cool. It's in my favorites. I read it every single day. You should as well. He's their editor and publisher. Let's bring him in. Matt, I got to get right at it because I'm frustrated. And you know that you know me a long time. That's not my nature. Pretty easygoing guy. I'm frustrated. Now, I want to tell you why. When I got to the Raiders, all I heard about from Raider fan was the NFL hates us, the media hates us. And at first, I'm like, all right, these people have been through a lot, and they're overstating it a little bit. And the longer I cover this team, the more I believe it's so. Let me give you an example. And this is where I'm frustrated. Ben Johnson, nobody thought he was coming to the Raiders. Let's just be very clear. All right. But then he sits down and begins to get to know Tom Brady, and they begin to realize a harmony of interest. They begin to find out that they're on the same wavelength over so much. And now all of a sudden, the narrative is, well, he may pick the Raiders because he doesn't want to go to Chicago and face Dan Campbell. I know for a fact 4 weeks ago that didn't bother him. It was what happened with Tom Brady, the harmony with Mark Davis, Richard Seymour. It was the appealingness of the Raiders that got his attention. And so my frustration is nobody wants to give the Raiders credit for anything. They have the nicest stadium in the NFL. And as you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've been to them all. They've got the absolute most incredible team facility anywhere. I mean, there's no state income taxes in Nevada. You've got an owner that's willing to spend any amount of money, another owner who is the greatest of all time to bounce things off, to really, even though it's not his title, to have as a director of football operations. This is a very appealing job. I agree. There's no defined QB1, but there's no reason to say for sure Caleb is. Trevor Lawrence has shown some things, but he's been in the league a while and there's still some question marks. I mean, why don't the Raiders get the respect? And I sound like a fan, and you know I'm not, but why don't they get the respect? To me, it's ridiculous. It's like the beautiful girl, like Shannon picking me. Well, there's got to be some. Maybe she just loved me. Maybe she just temporary blindness, but help me because I can't get away from it, and Raider fans mad, and I can't blame them.
Well, you're a lovable guy, but as far as the Raiders go, I think it's just a matter of wins and losses. It's as simple as that. It's 2 decades worth of futility in terms of wins and losses, and so much upheaval and so much dysfunction dating back to when Al Davis was still alive, and then going through this current era. I mean, even just the fact that you look at the 2 times they've made the playoffs since that in the last 20 years. 2016, the head coach that takes them to a 12-4 playoff appearance gets fired. And then 2021, they lost their head coach in October. And that team had talent. It was a great job by Rich Bisaccia. And I do think John Gruden had laid the foundation before he left of a playoff team. But they had dysfunction even making the playoffs or after making the playoffs. So I think it's just a matter of that. Now, I will say this. The report that came out, which we wrote about Ben Johnson having hesitation to go against Dan Campbell, that came from Dan Patrick, who has a great reputation as a broadcaster, an interviewer. Obviously, has accomplished a lot. Dan Patrick, I will caution, not saying he's wrong here, because I don't know if he is or he isn't, but Dan Patrick isn't always, he's not an insider. This isn't like Ian Rappaport or Tom Pelissero or Adam Schefter or whomever saying this, Jay Glazer. They don't have, not that he doesn't have sources, but they don't have, the network, or their only beat is the NFL. So it's possible that's not why, Ben Johnson, or it's not like it's a widespread thing that people are saying that about Ben Johnson. But getting back quickly to the Raiders, I just think that, yes, they do have a lot of money to spend. Mark Davis is willing to spend. They have a beautiful facility, beautiful stadium. But, you have to show that competency, and you have to show that proof of concept. And until I think they start doing that, especially with the division the way it is, with the Chiefs already there, the Chargers trending up, the Broncos trending up, they're going to keep getting looked at as, just an also-ran.
Yeah. It's just for me, because I spent so much time trying to explain to Raider fan, I think you're being a little, the longer I'm here, I mean, I'm not talking about you, but I was literally watching a national show the other day, and not because I want to. Now, I had no desire to. This is what I do for a living. When we get away from this, we don't want to.
Right.
But I was in a spot where it was on, and I couldn't. And they're talking about, could the Raiders' biggest blessing be that Ben Johnson doesn't want to face Dan Campbell? And I know for a fact, 4 weeks ago, that didn't bother him. It's like, okay, the Raiders can't have nice things, so if they get something nice, it's like the crowd that anytime somebody prospers, oh, who'd they steal that from?
Mm-hmm.
Or, how did they get that unfairly? It's so dumb. Like, people just can't work hard, and it's a narrative I don't like, and I don't think is fair to the Raiders. And you know what? We wrote about Dan Patrick's comments too. So it isn't like I was getting on you for writing
No,
it,
no,
but
no. I don't.
it just doesn't make sense to me. There is a lot of things appealing about the Raiders. Now, are there some things that are not appealing? Absolutely. But I think there's a lot more positives than negative. And I just think at some point, somebody's got to give the Raiders the respect they deserve. All right, I want to talk to you about Mark Davis, because I find something fascinating about him. And in the interest of full disclosure, I've gotten to know him, and I respect him greatly. You have known me for nearly 2 decades. You know I'm not a butt kisser. If I didn't like him, I probably wouldn't say that, but I certainly wouldn't lie and say that I do. I have watched him and my 6 years covering this team mature, grow as an owner, find his sea legs. So let's talk about Vrabel. He makes it clear to Tom Brady, we've tried the Patriot way. And, hey, we're open to the Brady way. That's why you're here. But I don't want the Vrabel direction. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, Vic Taffer and Tashawn Reed from The Athletic were the first to report this, but I have been able to confirm it talking to people in the building, but I want to give them credit. And then Vrabel comes out, and I talked about this a couple days ago, and, I wasn't interested in going to the Raiders. It was always the Patriots. I know for a fact the interest was there to go to the Raiders. It just, again, the narrative. So here's my point about Mark Davis. The guy has found his sea legs. He is not being overrun by Tom Brady. And in fairness to Tom Brady, Tom isn't trying to do that. They are working together. But this is a guy who has been able to do what his dad couldn't do, which was move the franchise with a lawsuit. They've gone from a team that was perpetually struggling financially to now they look like what was the name of that one duck from it wasn't Daffy Duck, but it was his rich uncle.
Oh yeah. I can't think. Oh man, it's gonna come to me. But I remember he used to swim in the cash.
Right.
Yeah.
To now they're swimming in cash. Now I broke the story that money will be no object in getting the man that they want for the job. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Mark Davis is getting enough credit. Now, I understand, and he understands he'll get it with winning, but it still doesn't change the fact that, again, the narrative, he's cheap, he doesn't know what he's doing, yada, yada, yada. I mean, the man comes out and says, here's what I know, here's what I don't know. I'm going to surround myself with people who know where I don't. I don't think Mark gets enough credit. What are your thoughts on Mark Davis?
I think that, some of it may go back to the way his father's tenure ended, because as great of an executive and as a pioneer as Al Davis was, the end of his tenure did not go well. So I think that maybe there's some people that kind of lump him in with that. But I do think that some of it is just a matter of it's you have to show people you have to prove to them that you can do it. And I think that, to me it's a little bit like where I always bring things back to where I'm most familiar with the New York area. It's a little bit like what happened with the Knicks before, say, 2020. The Knicks were one of the biggest punchlines in the NBA. And Knicks fans, I am a Knicks fan, full disclosure, a lot of them felt like, the media hates us. The media, rips on us. The media makes fun of us, bash the Knicks for clicks. But the Knicks didn't really exactly give any reasons to believe they were run competently or any reasons to not make themselves an easy joke. So I think here's the thing. People are not going to give Mark Davis an overwhelming amount of credit. Yeah, they'll say, he is willing to spend. Obviously, he's been willing to spend even just on coaches alone, because he's moved off of coaching hires that didn't work out quickly and change directions and not worried about buyouts and things like that. So he'll do that. But people aren't going to give him credit as an owner until they start to see that kind of consistency and that solid base. Now, listen, I will make a prediction. If the Raiders, whoever they hire this offseason, whoever they draft, whatever, if they start to get it together and they start to become a winner,
Johnson.
then the credit is going to go to that coach. But it's a lot of credit's going to go to Tom Brady. That's just the way things go. Brady's the GOAT. He has such an influence here. So Mark Davis may not necessarily even get a lot of the credit then, too. But I think he'll be okay with that if they're winning and they're filling the stadium and they have playoff appearances.
Well, here's the other thing, though. This is what I mean about credit for Mark Davis. And you just quickly skipped over him and said, well, if Ben Johnson comes in and succeeds, Tom Brady's going to get the success, going to get the credit.
Johnson would too, but Tom Brady's going to get a lot of it.
But wait, here's my point. Tom Brady's not here without Mark Davis.
Right.
And so, again, Mark Davis was able to recruit Tom, get Tom to invest, and then allow Tom to be the central voice in all of this. So, again, even you just did it, skipping Mark, going right to Tom. A lot of owners are insecure. They don't want other people getting the credit. Now, listen, I'm going to say this flat out front. The Raiders would not get Ben Johnson if Tom Brady was not part of this. I 100% know that, stand by that. But they don't have Tom Brady if they don't have Mark Davis. Again, it's the process of where he's constantly minimized.
And that's kind of where it is with an owner, where you're the buck stops with you. You're the main culprit if there's a lot of losing. But when the winning starts, you don't always get credit for it. I'll give you. Let's look ahead here. Let's say the Jets. The Jets are also hiring a new head coach and a new GM. Let's say the Jets hire whomever, and they have some couple good seasons, make the playoffs. They snap this long losing streak. The credit's going to go to those two guys that they hire. People are not going to give credit to Woody Johnson, even though he hired him, because Woody Johnson was a major reason they were in this mess. Now, I'm not saying Mark Davis is as far gone as Woody Johnson. I think you can make the case that Woody Johnson is probably the worst owner in the league right now. But my point is that the owner, people are going to say, well, yeah, you hired the guys that dug us out of it, but you also were a major reason why we got down into that mess in the first place. So it's just part of being, the job. And again, if you're the owner, you understand that. You'll trade it for the team having success and the fans being off your back and making more money and having those good storylines. But it's just a reality.
All right. So I want to switch directions now with you. Um, Dion, uh, let me just tell you, this is what I was told by an NFL executive. I believe there is legitimate interest in Bill Belichick for the Cowboys. I know he's got a $10 million buyout, which is chump change to Jerry. I know there is legitimate interest in Dion. They're going to go look at a bunch of college coaches because Jerry wants all the attention on the Cowboys. But do you believe Deion Sanders, if he goes there and they're able to trade Dak Prescott to the Titans and to pick up Shador Sanders, do you really think Deion Sanders would be a successful NFL coach? And I'm going to tell you why. I know people, first of all, I have immense respect for Deion. I've been around him several times privately in non football situations. I've talked to him multiple times. I like Deion Sanders. So this is not personal. But I also know people at Colorado. I know how he runs his team, and certainly he's done a good job. I don't think that works the way he does it in the NFL. I think he's a great for college. I think he is not great for the pros. I don't think Deion would succeed in the pros for a lot of reasons. I look at Irvin, and I know why Irvin struggled in the NBA. Obviously, Larry Bird was a great coach in the NBA, but he's a rarity. When you look at a lot of guys who were elite players, and you see some guys who are good players or okay that are good coaches, but the elites struggle. I just don't think Deion Sanders works in the NFL at all. I don't think it's a good fit. And I think, though, it would turn the Cowboys into must see TV. And oh my goodness, we would get it force fed. Do you think Deion would be a good NFL coach?
I don't. Or not in Dallas. I don't think it would work in Dallas, definitely. I think, and this is not, I'm not commenting anything on his football acumen or his ability to put a staff
Not at
together
all.
because I thought he put a really good staff together with Colorado the last 2 years. My question is this: in at a high level, so Division One college football, FBS, FCS, Jackson State, Colorado, he has never had a quarterback other than his son. Now, here's the question. Now you have, if you go to Dallas, now listen, if he stays in Colorado, he's coaching a different quarterback in 2025 anyway, yes. But you go to Dallas, if you're coaching Dak Prescott, that's a different quarterback than your son. And I think it's even worse if you move heaven and earth to get Shador, because now you're putting him under such a microscope. You're dropping him into a team. It's different when you are in a college team and Shador is one of the best players. He was definitely one of their better players. Travis Hunter was the best, but Shador was one of the best, clear leader, clearly, the best option at quarterback. There was nothing. Now, if they did that, and they traded for him, which I don't know if it's even possible with the cap hits, but if they acquired him and got rid of Dak, that puts such an incredible amount of pressure on him and Deion to win right away with a team full of vets. And then if they don't get Shador, there's that storyline of, well, Deion's coaching in Dallas, his kid is over here. Does he want to trade for his son? How is Deion going to handle that? Like, I just don't think it would be a good situation, even especially in Dallas with all the personalities and how much Jerry wants to be the show. I think that I don't think it would work there.
Yeah. So somebody who I am very close to at the University of Colorado said to me, they love Deion, but they said it is very clear here who his sons are. And this person has an NFL connection. We'll just leave it like that. And they said, I don't see the way he favors his sons working in the NFL. And especially when Shador goes through rookie struggles in that locker room, that's why I feel that way. I think he would probably do better not coaching his son.
I
And
agree
I
with that.
think Shador would do better not
away
being
from
coached
that.
by his dad.
I agree with
But
that.
he has said, I'm only going to NFL if I get to coach my son. So, anyways, interesting thing. All right. I know we said we were going to do our Super Bowl predictions, but we're up against the clock. I can't do it. We don't have time today. We'll do it next week. But I want to ask you one other quick question because I think it's fascinating. There is so much scrutiny right now with Tom Brady tampering, all of this kind of stuff. I mean, he's, doing the Lions game and whatever. Isn't it ironic? I had an NFL executive say this to me on Tuesday. He said that once again, now the NFL seems to be lining up against a Raiders owner. It's not Mark, but it's like it was with Al. They're the ones that put all these restrictions on him that he can't do during the week. So they're mad at him for being able to be part of the head coaching vacancy. I think it's funny that yet again a Raiders owner finds themselves the target of the NFL. I'd love your thoughts.
Well, maybe that's a good sign for the future of the organization because I feel like when Al Davis was really an enemy of the league, that's when the Raiders were playing their best and winning. But it is interesting, and I think it goes back to what we talked about last week about how many years, how long do you think Tom Brady's going to do this dual threat thing? Because he's such a competitive person, and he's going to want to be focused on one thing. And I think that thing that would win out is winning and being involved in actual football operations as an owner, as opposed to being in the booth. Again, huge contract, runs through 2020, 2034, 35, something like that. It's a 10-year deal.
I say 4 more seasons.
You
I think
said
he does 25, 26, 27, and 28, and
he
then
doesn't need all the money from that contract. We know he's done very well for himself. So I don't know. I think if things are going pretty well for the Raiders, and he's focused on that, he's going to want to devote all his attention to being an owner.
All right. Matt, always good to have you. Tell everybody where to find you on social media.
Sure. You can find me on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, at Matt Halatic 919. I still call it Twitter. It's just easier.
I do too.
And then, I'm always on there. I've had some Raiders fans hit me up and follow me and interact. So it's always a pleasure.
Good to see you, Matt.
You too.